I think we're going through a stage of great flux in the Australian media at the moment. Obviously, with the arrival of new media, it's changed the ground rules, and one of the things it's done more than anything else has changed the way that the commercial media is operating. So, and commercial media is extremely important. I'd hate to see an environment where we just had the national broadcaster as the sole voice, and so the structures that were in place that allowed the 3 television stations to make enough money to pay for their journalism, they've all broken down as the advertising dollars have shattered across all of the different forums. The rivers of gold that used to fund Fairfax have dried up as that advertising revenue's gone elsewhere. So you're seeing a breaking down of the commercial models of media in Australia, and that's having a really huge impact on the way that mainstream media is delivering its product. We're seeing the newspapers experimenting with different ways of trying to get people to pay for their product online, but $1 was $1 in the real world. Now it's 18 cents in the virtual world. Again, it's a very difficult transition that we're going through, and we're seeing the rise then of the citizen blogger and the citizen journalist as well. So it's a time of great flux. I'm not quite sure where it will end or how it shakes out, but certainly there's a lot of uncertainty in the marketplace. Oh, look, I think it's great to have more voices on the playing field, but it's good to have people delivering original material as well. Crikey does some, but I think a lot of the people who make claims about what online is doing at the moment are overblowing it. There's a lot of commentary. There's not a lot of original journalism in there. And if you're talking about the stuff that does the best for a healthy democracy, that is shining a light in the dark places, well, that's usually done by, and it was done in the past, by journalists who are finding things out about what was going on in the political process, or spending some time and some money and trying to dig their way through some real detail of what was going on in the background. So I think that was a useful purpose that the mainstream media served. Whether it did it well or badly, well, that's up to others to judge. And I think on occasions it did it very well, and on other occasions it did it very badly. But I think that for a long time the Australian public was well served by the Australian media. It's going through change at the moment. Whether it emerges on the other side as better or worse, well, we'll find out, I guess. Nobody knows. Yeah, look, I think it's interesting, the whole, like the Canberra, you know, all of the criticism it's got for years, it's an artificial city, all the rest of it, is that the essential thing about Canberra, though, is without Canberra there would be no Australia. That was a settlement between the colonies, that it couldn't be Sydney and it couldn't be Melbourne, it had to be somewhere else, so we had to create a capital, and the outcome of that was the Australian Federation, which all in all is a good thing. Now, we're having the 100th anniversary of Canberra this year. You wouldn't know it in the rest of Australia. It's being celebrated here. I know people have tried very hard to get people passionate about the capital. You know, it's got flaws. Any place would. Is it any more removed from the real world, as people like to call it, than the bureaucrats who live in the leafy suburbs of Sydney or Melbourne? I doubt it. So I think that the capital, all in all, is a good thing. Is it as connected to the rest of the country as it could be? Maybe not. Could politicians do more about that? I think that they could. But in the end, you know, that there's not an enormous amount of work gone into the kind of project of making people proud about their capital, and I think that's unfortunate. You know, it's still pretty young though, 100 years. In 100 years' time, people may have changed their view. Read as many sources, follow as many sources, listen to as many things, find as many original documents as you can if you're genuinely, passionately interested, and I think people should be, because in the end, politics, as Aristotle saw it, was about making society a better place. It was the highest of all of the scientists in his understanding of it, because what better cause could there be than to make the world a better place for the people that inhabit it? And for all of its flaws, democracy is the best model that we have. It's certainly an enduring model in Australia. We're one of the oldest democracies on earth. We have the oldest Labor Party on earth, and my great hope is that it actually endures. It might go through some dark times, but it's had them in the past, and I'm sure it will come through them. So for all the flaws of our model, it's got a great deal of strengths as well. Over the course of 112 years of federation, in fact, we've had a pretty good settlement in Australia. It is a pretty decent society. And again, we can all point to its weaknesses, but I heard someone interviewed on the BBC the other night who was the head of the BBC's Urdu service, and he was talking about the Pakistani elections, and he said it was the most violent election campaign he'd ever been involved in. You know, there are multiple deaths happening there all the time. And of course he'd spent some time in the UK, and he said, I went into Oxford Street once to get a packet, I think it was crisps, and as I walked out I saw on it, marked on it, may contain nuts. And he said, you know, that's the last thing that people in Pakistan worry is going to kill them. Any number of other things might happen, but that's not the sort of things that they worry about. They're the sort of things that we worry about here. People can call them middle-class worries, but wouldn't you rather have those?